the core needs, the two primal questions that fall under that core need of safety. The first one's pretty obvious, am I safe? The second one's, am I secure? And so if you're constantly scanning for danger, it drives fear and controls obsessive planning. You're going to see controlling behavior. I like what you said. You're constantly scanning.
And with safety, you're also what you're trying to achieve in life and what you're trying to do with all your decisions is protect. Like that's the main word, is that I'm scanning, I'm protecting safety. And that is your core need, is seeking protection.
Hello, Shannon.
Hello, Chico.
Look at, if you're watching, it's my new background. I love what's behind me.
Your new background. I know. It's all about you there, your post Go West. Yes, yes.
But it's my favorite gift you gave me.
I know. It's good. I wish they still did it, but they don't. It's a movie poster with a movie that's starring you, but it's all personalized and whatever. It's fun. It's fun. I like it.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite gift. Very thoughtful and creative.
Well, I like it. I like it too.
How are you doing today?
Well, so, it's crazy because, first of all, it's spring break time, kind of across the country, different weeks or whatever, but March is kind of spring break time. And I have never been a big spring break celebrator. I've never really loved spring break. In fact, I've kind of hated spring break because I feel like you make all these plans and everybody's tired or they get sick because they're coming off of winter time and it's flu season still or whatever. Or you make plans to go somewhere and your flights get canceled, or you go somewhere and it rains the whole time and you're not expecting rain or whatever. So I'm not a big spring breaker, and it turns out that I need a break from the world because the mountain cedar is so bad in Texas and it's causing, I couldn't put eye makeup on. If you're watching too, you can see the redness. It looks like I have red eyeshadow on because
it kind of does from eyes, here. I will give you that.
And my nose, like everything is so stopped up and barometric pressure's off. And we had a freeze last night, but also it was 87 degrees yesterday, and then it went to freezing. And anyway, and I'm waiting on some blood tests from my annual doctor's appointment. And I don't typically have what people would call medical anxiety, I guess. I just know something's off. And so I have a little bit of anxiety about waiting. And I know a lot of people out there have to wait for different things, and waiting is not easy, but so that's where I am today.
Yeah, so you have a lot on your plate. I'm grateful that you're showing up here, and I like what you said. I don't have a lot of medical anxiety. It might be to the fact that, hey, what we're going to talk about, we're doing a second part on the primal question. And maybe people with medical anxiety might fall under P1 or P2.
Exactly. And I have a lot to share about what my primal question, how it comes up in some core needs that I have. And I will give those examples as we get into it. But
so today we're going to go back once again to what Mike Foster came up with, and we're giving him the credit. So once again, on our last episode, we want to hang out with you, Mike. Shannon, you've gotten to know Shannon when she did your whole certification, but we really find this helpful in coaching and for me in therapy. I find the primal question and how everybody falls back into one of these 7 primal questions. I think we should go over the primal questions real quick, and then we're going to dig deeper today. And we hope that you recognize, okay, what your primal question is, and see, once you recognize that primal question, how you can turn that primal question into the primal truth. in your
Yes.
life.
And there's generally a core need that corresponds with each primal question. And we're going to go over the core needs also, which is kind of nice when you're doing a deep dive. But do you want me to go over the primal questions?
Yeah, why don't you go? I know them.
I know.
But go
Okay.
for it.
Well, there's 7, and it's am I safe? Am I secure? Am I loved? Am I wanted? Am I successful? Am I good enough? And do I have a purpose? Those are the 7 primal questions. And we talked about on a couple of episodes ago about kind of different aspects of each primal question. And you can take a test that will determine your primal question and then kind of do a deep dive on all of that. But
And Mike Foster has a book called The 7 Primal Questions that you can also get.
exactly, it looks like this if you're watching, but
It
yeah,
is
it's the 7
actually
primal.
that. It doesn't just look like that. It is that. No. So
Well,
it's
I meant if you're watching, this is what it looks like. If you look on Amazon, I mean, this is the actual book. Yes. Okay. But what we're going to talk about today are the core needs that go along with your primal question. And you don't need to know what your primal question is right now, today, to appreciate this conversation.
the great thing is it's all simple. 7 primal questions that have 7 truths, primal truths related to each one. And real simple, the primal truths for the 7 primal questions is just kind of almost, it's like the opposite. Am I safe? The primal truth is I am safe. Am I secure? The primal truth is I am secure. If it's love, am I loved? I am loved. If I'm wanted, I am wanted. And then, am I successful?
I am successful. Am I good enough? I am good enough. Do I have a purpose? Yes, you have a purpose. I have a purpose, whatever. Okay. Yes, those are the primal truths. And then when you're uncovering, we talked about on the primal question episode about the fast pass to uncovering some of these things. And I called it a fast pass because it's not a quick fix. Okay. I don't want them to get confused. Those two things, a quick fix and a fast pass, they're different. So a quick fix is kind of what is coming out on social media now and things like that, like an 8-minute workout. Do just 8 minutes a day and you're going to have these results. That's a quick fix, which really just deals with, we're going to use a tree example, really just deals with the branches of a tree and what you can see on the outside. If you're talking about a workout or even take this every day for glowing skin or whatever, like that deals with the branches. That's a quick fix.
What do you mean the branches, Shannon?
Well, I'm going to talk about that, but I'm talking about this kind of gets to a fast pass, meaning you kind of weed through the branches and you get to the roots of the issues or the struggles that you are battling with. So what I mean by the branches and the roots, quick fix, fast pass, are picture a tree. Everyone can picture a tree. Everyone knows what a tree looks like. A beautiful big tree with lots of leaves and foliage and a trunk, and then pretend you can picture down beneath the ground the roots. And we all know what keeps trees alive and full. Is it taking a hose and watering the branches? Like when you water the branches, is that how you take care of trees? No, it's not. You can participate.
Yes.
How do you take care of trees? You fertilize them, you water the roots, you take care of the roots, right?
Yes. You take care of the roots.
That's how you take care of a tree. Now, how do you get to the roots? So, in the leaves, do you want to add something?
Well, the cool thing is also a lot of times you take care of the tree sometimes by trimming the branches, by taking some of the leaves off. During winter,
Well,
leaves
that's
fall
called
off. Yes.
pruning.
Yes.
Okay, so if you picture, now that you have a good visual of a tree, let's picture a healthy tree. Let's compare the healthy tree and all the trunk and the roots and everything, that picture to our lives. And what happens in the branches and in the leaves is that's where drama lives, I like to say, meaning that's where our brains are. That's where our head is saying, I need to be more productive, or, ooh, I shouldn't go out in the street because it's not safe, or I don't get along with my coworker. All these things that are going on in the branches and in the trees and all that kind of stuff.
You know what I call that in therapy?
Yes, what?
So in
No,
therapy,
I don't know what.
In therapy, what happens a lot of times when couples come in and I'm doing marriage therapy with them and stuff like that is they get focused. What I see the branches are is these evidence war. What he said, what she said, and they get caught in these up here that really doesn't address the root at all.
Right. Evidence lives there, right?
Oh, it just isn't. It's and I what I go.
You
Oh,
always do this. You never do this.
Yeah. Well, that's not exactly what I said. And so it becomes this evidence war that happens all the time.
Right.
And
so in therapy, what you do, what you want to help people do is prune the branches, right?
yes.
So that you can have more beautiful growth. That's what you do this time of year. Is you go, if you have hydrangeas in your yard, you're supposed to prune them. And even if they have some green on them, you're supposed to still prune them. The roses you prune, bushes you prune, things you prune. And there's plenty of analogies of pruning in the Bible. God wants you to prune your branches and uses plenty of examples.
It's totally in John 15.
Yes.
That God, Jesus, he's the vine dresser. He's the vine, and he cuts back the branches that are not useful,
Right.
And so stuff like that. And so when you're in therapy and you're doing couples therapy, and that's why I love this primal question, this whole framework, because a lot of times I like therapy. I'm a therapist. Therapy, it can help explain things. It can help, identify where things are coming from. Personality test, can describe you. Traditional coaching can help manage you. But with primal question, what it does is all of a sudden this whole little concept of the 7 primal questions and then the core needs. We haven't even said how many core needs there are, but we will. But it can set you free because it's getting down to the roots.
Well, so you skipped ahead because we're still talking about pruning. I want people to really visualize, God gives us that visual through Jesus and just the Bible, the branches and the pruning. And we have real time examples of that. That's what you have to do in gardening. And that's why spring is so wonderful, renewal and everything. And it hurts people to print I watched this gardening gal on social media and she's like, I know it's going to hurt you to cut these, but because you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm cutting. I shouldn't cut, but it's a good thing. And so I want people to picture that that's why therapy can be so beneficial and, pruning the branches in your life can be they're necessary. It's necessary and beneficial. But if you don't take care of the roots, then eventually it can't sustain that. And so I think when you identify your primal question, it's a fast pass to the roots that you can start working on. And in the roots live your core needs. So in the branches and everything is where the drama lives, the evidence lives, all of your daily grind problems things that you have going on at that time with a spouse, with your parents, with your kids, or something like that.
With work, with friendships,
Yes,
with
all
all
of that
those
lives
things.
within time. But then when you get the fast pass down to the roots, that's where the core needs live. And so we can talk about the core needs of each primal question.
Yes.
So do you want to kind of start with that, and then I can talk
And so
about those?
let me talk
Okay.
about there's 3 core needs. And
Yes.
it comes down to these 3 things. It comes down to safety, belonging, and significance.
Right.
And so safety falls. You want to explain it or want me to?
No, we can both. How about we
Okay.
both? I was just
Yeah.
going to make sure you were. So for what I have for safety is if your core need is safety, then you're constantly scanning. You're constantly scanning for danger, whether that be physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it might be in your life, you're constantly scanning for danger, right?
And so yes, exactly. And
Okay.
so the core needs, the 2 primal questions that fall under that core need of safety. The first one's pretty obvious. Am I safe? The second one's, am I secure? And so if you're constantly scanning for danger, it drives fear and controls obsessive planning. You're going to see controlling behavior. I like what you said. You're constantly scanning, and so there is that.
And with safety, you're also what you're trying to achieve in life and what you're trying to do with all your decisions is protect. Like that's the main word, is that I'm scanning, I'm protecting safety. And that is your core need, is seeking protection for everything. That's what you're trying to do. And so it's getting to the root of that and then looking at situations like, oh my gosh, am I just trying to get safe? And am I trying to just protect myself? And instead of thinking, I'm not going to travel to Mexico because there's so much going on with the cartel, and you're constantly thinking, I'm just not going to go. I can't do that. That is not safe. I'm going to protect everyone. Instead, get to the root of why you're not going to Mexico. That might be in the branches. You might share in therapy
About cartel stuff, about,
yes,
TSA lines or whatever.
Yes. Or getting stuck there or anything like that. And this can be any situation. I just bring up that right now because I'm spring break thinking, and one of our sons is in Mexico. But and that's not a worry. That's not my primal question. So I'm not constantly scanning. I had other parents. Are you going to let him go? Are you going to let him go? Are you? And that's just not my core need.
Okay. And so the cool thing about you and when I like that you said that about people asking, now you and I both are listening from this primal question mindset, even with our friends, is like, oh, that might be their core need. That might be their primal question.
It
and
helps
so it's
me be more gentle in my approach to people and understanding. I mean, if that is your primal question, but if that is your primal question, then that is a real worry for you, protection. And so I just try to gently, coach them through their roots. That's the root, so that they can kind of prune the fear from the branches. They can prune the fear. I mean, we all have legitimate concerns, and there's legitimate stuff that you don't prune.
Yes.
There's.
But right there, what we do in our a few episodes ago is we now get away from trying to shoot on them. Oh, you shouldn't worry. You shouldn't fear.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's their core need is safety. Their primal question is probably, am I safe or am I secure? And so they when we're hearing that fear, that controlling, are you going to do this? Trying to get reassurance from someone else, that controlling, that constant scanning is like we're approaching people on a daily basis differently and holding space for them.
With that kind of brings us to the second core need, because I think you can have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, and so the second core need is belonging, okay? And what primal questions fall under that. It's genius what he did. And it's so simple yet so deep. But the belonging, am I loved or am I wanted? That falls under that core need of belonging. When that core need isn't being met, when you're not getting down to the roots, you're over explaining, you're over committing. And then here's a big one that I fall under, because this is me. When I'm not getting a yes to my question, I'm oversensitive. My sensitivity is truly a gift. When I am in my primal truth, I am loved. Man, my sensitivity gets me to connect with people that other people just are. How do you do that? I don't know. They're blown away. I think about that all the time.
And I have approval chasing and people pleasing along with the overcommitting and everything. And then, so with the belonging, like with safety, it's what are you trying to do? You're trying to protect. With the belonging, what are you trying to do? You're trying to connect. That's going to live in the roots. This sense of wanting to belong, this sense of belonging and connecting. You are needing to connect. And so when things are happening in your branches and in your leaves of the tree, really it's you trying to connect or belong. And you have to, can you think of an example of off the cuff of something that's in your branches that?
Yeah, I can think of one for me. Is like, I grew up in San Antonio. That's, that you can go back and listen to other episodes and hear some of where I believe those wounds came from. But the belonging, the needing to connect, that oversensitivity is, I'm the oldest of 4 boys and I'm close to 2 of my brothers. And if they don't respond to me, I've seen when I've been in that unhealthy place, is like I'm almost try too hard. I almost get in there, even though I come across, if you go back to personality test, can describe you. I am a challenger, but it's like my challenger mindset comes out in an unhealthy way. Well, how come? What's going on? And it's just like, I don't give space to my brothers. And it's like, the more I got into this healthy place and seeing that place that I am loved and I don't need to connect, and I really get down to the root that, hey, I don't need to believe those lies. That wound.
You can prune off that fear of not being loved. You can prune off that need to hear from them immediately or whatever to prove their love and whatever. But you can kind of prune that fear. You can, again, it all boils down to like a fear.
Well, and I think about that in John 15 too. Every branch in me, this is Jesus talking, that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. And I listen to that and I go, wow, sometimes pruning was a real good thing. And what it said to me is we had these 2 programs, Gaston House and Casa. We didn't plan on selling them, but they were very fruitful in that season in our life. And now we don't have it. And it's like I'm at this place now that I'm grateful for that.
Yes. And you are still a beloved counselor in recovery and owner of treatment centers. And it turns out you heard through the grapevine that you were spoken about in a kind way at a conference recently.
Yeah, last week.
Which is so, that all lives in your branches that needs to be pruned off, that you are afraid people don't love you anymore because you sold your program, or you're afraid that staff
I'm not relevant.
But that staff doesn't love you anymore because they maybe feel betrayed because they don't know the ins and the outs of the sales of these situations and kind of what happened. And, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And so, but you get to prune that away, that fear of people not knowing the truth or not knowing the whole story or whatever, it doesn't.
And I don't have to
But when you take care of
over-explain.
those roots, it doesn't matter. You're pruning those parts, and then it's still beautiful growth,
Yes.
right?
Right. And so it's really cool to see that place that I'm getting down to the roots, and I'm turning those wounds from my childhood into a superpower today as a 57-year-old man.
Yes. So you can focus on the primal gift, which is different from the primal truth. The primal truth is I am loved, and then we all have gifts that go along with it. And we talked about the gifts too. In the last episode, we talked about the gifts. We didn't talk about them. But so with the 1 and 2s that are the, safety and the roots or whatever, their primal gifts are
The world's
the 1
guard.
is the guardians and protectors, and then 2s are stability and security through connection and financial resources and whatever. So that they get to prune and live. When they get to the roots, they get to live in these primal gifts. And then what we're talking about now, the belonging, it makes sense because the Q3 primal gifts are empathy experts, see people's hearts, and they're likable. And then the 4s are includers, and their superpower of followership and social attractors. So that's all about belonging. And so when you get to the roots of that, you get to prune away all that fear and all the things that have you kind of stuck. And then you get to the roots and you recognize and have an awareness that that is a core need that you have. And so you can operate in your primal gifts, right?
Right. And so let's talk about the last core
Okay.
need.
So
And we can talk about the gifts that go along with that afterwards.
I wasn't, see, I wasn't going to
No,
talk
you
about
weren't.
them yet. I was just
But-
catching up.
But the third core need is, this one is where you fall under, is
Yes.
significance. And that's
significance. And it goes under 3 because there are just 3 core needs and there are 7 primal questions. And so significance goes under, am I successful? Am I good enough? And do I have a purpose? Significance is when you're looking for significance, you work harder, it's striving, it's self-critical. Emptiness and success, it's never really quite as satisfying you initially think it's going to be. And so you just are constantly looking for significance. Do you have anything to add to?
Well, and I would just, the thing I would add is, a lot of times what I see with people on this one, they're like Energizer bunnies. They are constantly moving, endless striving. But then, man, you really, if you're married to one, you don't really have to say anything because they're critical on themselves. You don't need to be critical because they're so critical on themselves when that core root need isn't being addressed or attacked. It's like they struggle with really seeing their significance, and it's that endless striving, self-critical. But even when they have wins, when they get these wins, it's kind of empty.
So you know what that is? So with safety, remember what you're trying to do is protect.
Yes.
And with belonging, what you're trying to do is connect. With the significance, what you're trying to do is prove. Okay? So constantly trying to
connect.
No, prove.
I know, but
protect,
connect, prove.
Prove is safety, belonging, and significance. And so I have just a lifetime of examples of this, but there's a constant need for me to, if I am operating in my branches, okay, so where the drama lives, I take things very personally that shouldn't be taken personally. Like, I am in charge of, I'm the treasurer for an organization. Okay. So I collect the money, I disperse the money, I pay the bills or whatever. I keep up with all of that stuff. And I'm very good at it. In fact, I said today to a friend, if I have to say the word spreadsheet one more time after May, I just might jump off a cliff because I have done so many spreadsheets. Like I'm a spreadsheet girl. And I think that internally, I'm like, I can nail this. I will nail this. I want to make life easier for everyone through systems and significance and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to.
So can I ask this question?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a statement, and then ask the question. You have nailed it. And the question is, do you struggle with believing you've nailed it in this scenario?
Well, yes, because if there's one mistake, and there are going to be mistakes. Oh, I mean, no one is perfect except for one person that lived a long time ago. But no one's perfect. And no one is attacking me or criticizing me for mistakes that might be made because they're happy I'm doing it because no one else wants to do it. I seem to like doing administrative dumb things. But if someone points out a mistake, I take it very personally. Does that make sense? And I think, oh my gosh, well, I didn't prove to them that I'm good enough. I'm just not good enough. And so it gets to the root of my needs. I need significance.
And so here's the crazy thing. I like this concept. When our core need is unmet, it hijacks our behavior.
Yes, totally. Well,
and so it's like
that's the scramble.
That's the scramble or the primal avoidance. But when our core need is unmet, it hijacks our behavior. So what we have to do, the key is, so if you're listening today,
I can get 100 compliments or 100, and I'm not saying that I need people complimenting me all day long. In fact, that tortures me.
That drives you nuts.
It's like I can be good enough without having external. That's the thing, is that you need to be good enough without having external stimulus, whatever. So that tortures me. But I'm just saying, I'm making the point that I could get, 100 compliments and I could get one critical comment or what I perceive as critical, which is a lot of the branches and the evidence wars and all that kind of stuff. And it could just ruin my whole project. It just tanks me.
Yeah. And so here's the crazy thing for you and I, my core need, is belonging. And so what I need is to connect. Yours is significance. You need to prove. We don't have that, the core need being safety, protect. That's just innate in both of us, which I think is kind of good. I mean, it's been kind of crazy over the years if you pause.
And we're both firstborns, which is interesting, little fact. But
yeah, but it's crazy. We don't do that anymore. So anybody listening, you'll get shot. But we've left our house unlocked multiple times over the years. We actually left and my buddy was walking down the street. This was about 10 years ago. Our front door was wide open and we were out of town. He called because it got blown.
It blew
open. We forgot to lock the door. I mean, so we don't have those safety issues.
Right.
And when I say you'll get...
I know when you travel, people are like, I have friends that are like, oh my gosh, you can stay at home. Are you okay staying at home alone? And I'm like, yeah. Yes.
And then literally, I forgot to lock the back door the other night and it was storming. And I looked out the window and I go, the back door is wide open.
Yeah, no, that's problematic because of rain. But anyway, so.
But we don't have that. But we have the connect and prove. And when, what you were just talking about right there is, I want to connect. And man, you have made me a better man, a better husband. You've been the best business partner I've ever had. And when I come home and
That's not saying a lot, but anyway. Sorry.
That is true. That is true. That's not a high bar. I've had some pretty crappy
anyway,
business
I didn't
partners.
mean to derail you, but go ahead.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. I'm going to use the word shitty business partners.
Okay, go ahead.
But the cool thing is, for when I come home, I want to connect, and I'm an encourager. And when I step in there and talk about, oh, wow, Shannon, you really did well at this. You really did well at that. It's like for a long time in our marriage, you would discount it. Now you can take it better because you're really addressing that core need of significance and stepping into your truth. But I remember saying that, and I'm literally giving you a compliment. When you say I don't need compliments, you really don't need them. But it's getting down to that core
yes.
need.
Correct. And it's all internal. Like, I can give you a good example. Like, you send me reels all the time. And it's so annoying.
It's not all the time. I mean, pause there.
It's a lot. Don't make me get into evidence wars with you on that.
That's
because
the
I have the evidence.
That's the branches.
I know. But so you sent me one on like a wife women just opening an experiment of opening their arms, when
and that's what the man needs. Yes.
Exactly. And that's what the man needs. But so the way I view things like that is, okay, I can do that. Like, it's fine. I can try that, whatever. And then it's like, well, I'm going to prove to him that I have significance and that I'm going to do that. Okay, fine. I can just prove it to him. And I know you're not sending it to me for that. You want me to do it, but that's the way I intake information.
That's your filter.
How I process.
That's how you process. So when we talk about, the superpowers, turning our wounds into our superpowers, you talked about safety, security,
primal
gifts. Primal gifts. But go into the primal gifts for, am I successful, good enough, and purpose? So
the Q5, am I successful, they are maximizers. They make everyone and everything succeed. Often misunderstood, and they tend to be pragmatic and strategic. But
that's our
the fives.
Second board.
I know.
I like how it says they're often misunderstood.
I love that part. And we pointed that out in the last one. I mean, think about people that you have heard. I said that about our youngest for a long time when he was a little boy. I was like, oh, he's kind of misunderstood in a lot of ways. And I don't even know why I thought that, or to use that, verbiage or whatever. Like, I don't know why I thought, but he was kind of misunderstood. Anyway, so am I good enough? Q6 are value creators, opportunity finders, and hard workers. The key here is to take perfectionism and turn it into excellence. They pay attention to all things and see excellence. So,
hello.
Yeah, I know.
But take it in. Don't take it in that way. I know. You discount.
Well, it is. I just sometimes I want to be. I don't want to be in the branches. I don't know, but
I think this goes back to that little girl wound of always getting graded. It's
is perfectionism. It's built-in perfectionism, and I am a hard worker.
You are a value creator. I mean, it's
but I can't let things go sometimes, and that's, as far as like tasks that need to be done, and I really have to concentrate on not doing that. But anyway, that's fine. I can concentrate on. I can work on it. And then Q7s, do I have a purpose? They're big idea world changers. They have a unique idea of how they see things.
Yes.
So
that was in in the
Big
last
idea
episode,
world
we
changers.
did our little coaching with, young Gina today. She is truly this. And it's like she's a big idea, and she really helps us
But they
out.
have unique ideas about how they view things, which is what she was, she always shares with us. Like when we're wrestling with a topic or a thing, then she helps us see things.
You're sitting here right now listening or watching us, and you know you have wounds. These wounds keep getting in your way, and you keep focusing on the leaves, on the branches instead of the root. So what you need to do is you need to take this little primal question test. You can do it online or get his book, and it has a QR code. You need to name what that wound is. And then what you need to do next is you need to reframe that wound as a gift and see how that gift will really help you activate the gift into a massive action plan that activates you to this healthy place when you get down to the roots and really understand that. What would you add there?
Yeah, no, I think that's what it takes. And if you want coaching to help work through that and whatever, then that's kind of what we do. Or you can find someone, but it's definitely, I just want to add that I stand by the whole, it's a fast pass. It's not a quick fix, but it's a fast pass to kind of getting unstuck.
Yes. And so when we say, hey, we can coach all through that, we're coaching a couple here in a couple hours doing that. You had a coaching client, and we talked to her about just giving the example, not giving any names, but her example was perfect. Could you frame that up and how you kind of went through all seven things talking to her?
So her example, what she was struggling with, what she was stuck on was she is divorced and has newly divorced and has a young child. I was going to say that, but hang on. So she's divorced and has a young child, and her divorce had just begun a year ago, but it wasn't final until less than a year ago. And her ex-husband wanted to introduce the young daughter to a new love interest. Okay? So
his girlfriend.
Yeah, his girlfriend. He wanted to introduce the daughter to someone. And so she was just trying to figure out how to, in a healthy manner, approach it, because they are divorced. He gets to date whoever he wants to date. But she also gets to know where her daughter is going to be spending time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so she just was trying to figure out what she needed to do, which is a very healthy approach. Like, do I need to go to, codependency meetings or Al-Anon, or what do I need to do to make sure that I'm straight on all of this? And so then I started asking her what her goals were, as far as what was she trying to do? Was she trying to protect, connect, or prove? And she hadn't taken the primal question test yet. So we just walked through the different scenarios of her core needs. She identified what she needed. And then I said, well, then you get to the root of what you need, your core need, and then figure out how to be the best version of yourself. And then you will model that for your daughter, and it won't matter. You can't control what your ex-husband does. You can't control who he dates or goes out with. And then, so you can't control who your daughter is around, but you can control what you model for your daughter, because you're going to get to the root of what you need and what you want to do.
I was talking to her today because I know her as well, and she goes, "Oh, it even gets better." She goes, he brought the girlfriend with him because she said girlfriend. That's what I said. He brought the girlfriend with him for a school drop off. And she had been talking to the school, and it was like this opportunity. What she did after getting some coaching from you, she goes, "Okay, what do I need? I need to be honest with the school." And she didn't have to explain to her ex-husband, the inappropriateness, and this is pretty still new on the little girl. And the vice principal goes, "Oh, I'm going to talk to him." How, and so it was like she was asking you, "Hey, do I talk to him? Do I share this? Blah, blah, blah." And it was all of a sudden someone else did it and saying, "Hey, this is still fresh and new." And right now,
and if you're coaching from a point of like deciding what you're trying to do, protect, connect, improve, it doesn't take away. I told her, I said, if you feel like this woman or your ex-husband or something, like, there's a difference if there's a real danger, not just perceived or
like danger, Will Robbins,
right. If you're not constantly scanning or whatever, but if the person that your ex-husband is spending time with is an active drug abuser or something, turns out it's not, so that's great. I said, then you might want to change how you are pruning and dealing and getting to the roots of things. Like, there is some value in protection, connection, improve, but those are the God-given gut instincts that we're given and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to point that out because I don't want anyone to be like, but what if this person is a danger? Like, we're supposed to just get to the root of our feelings and deal with it. No,
exactly. And but it's like,
so that's
but
good.
getting down to the core of, okay.
And I asked her those questions. I was like,
Yes.
let's talk about it. And
there's nothing wrong with getting more information to make sure your daughter's safe, is what you were telling her.
yes,
All those things.
absolutely.
But the good thing is you're coaching her, seeing that, hey, what she's thinking and feeling isn't abnormal, isn't out of bounds, isn't any of those things. You gave that voice, and you were listening. Okay, now she needs to take the test and see, what her core need is. What her primal
And she wants to
question.
because
Yes.
she kind of wants a fast pass again.
Yes. So
And
now
she has a therapist also and a coach. And so, but she was going to her therapist later, but she wasn't, I guess she understands that the therapist can kind of work on the branches and everything else, but she needed root stuff.
She needed the root work.
Yeah.
So she's learning how to name the wound.
Yeah.
And it's not even about the ex-husband or any of those things, but seeing what the driver is. Then she's reframing that wound into a gift, which then activates the gift into a massive action plan, And so that's
because a lot of times as parents, if we don't get to the roots and we just stay in the branches, we are going to kind of pass these things and model these things to our kids, which is our greatest fear. She didn't want her daughter to be so affected by her branches, and she was trying to avoid that. But if she never gets to the root, then she's, going to do it anyway. So it's such a terrible cycle of.
Yeah. And so when our questions, when our core needs aren't being met, then our behavior gets hijacked. It hijacks when they're unmet. And so and we can get into the loop. And so it's that loop of, okay, am I in this protection mode, in this connection mode, or this prove mode? and we can go to therapy, and I get people they come in all the time and get into these evidence wars and stuff like that. And I keep going, no, what's underneath? What's underneath?
Right. And this is also something in a next ish episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about AI, but that's where, AI stops and real root work begins, is that usually AI can't get to the roots because it's you feeding it the questions and that kind of stuff.
AI will
And
stick,
we're going to talk about
will
that.
stick to the branches, and we're going to do an episode on that. Maybe later this week we'll probably do that one.
Probably. And I mean, AI can help you prune a little bit, but it's
not going to get down to the root.
To the roots. Anyway.
All right.
Okay,
well, that was a good episode.
That's that talk on the primal question. We will always have more coming about the primal question. Likely,
you can reach out to us if you want some coaching. We do coaching via Zoom, and we do couples coaching as well, and individual. So reach out to us and
via Zoom.
We can do the coaching on Zoom.
Oh yeah, but how can they reach out?
Through what? Through our...
your website is chico-west.com, right?
I think.
Yeah. That's so pathetic. Yeah. It's chico-west, chico-west.com is your website. And our email is filteroptional@gmail.com.
Filteroptional@gmail.com.
I have a website too, but it's not that as active as Chico's. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.